Hello, everybody. My name is Chindi.
And I'm Liz. Good evening.
Yes, hello, everybody. Sorry, we've not been around for a while. We are going to now delve into our topic today on personal responsibility. The first thing is personal accountability. Liz, you know a lot more about this than I do, so go into it.
Well, actually, I think we all do. To me, personal accountability is really getting raw with yourself and having those difficult conversations with yourself in terms of what part or what role do I play in terms of my success or my plan. If I'm repeating the same behaviors and getting the same result, regardless of what the situation is, perhaps you or I may play the role. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Now here's the situation. Let me play devil's advocate a little bit, right?
Hmm.
So I say, you know what? People are just difficult. I can't understand why nobody understands me. I go to work and I want things a certain way, and nobody understands me. What would you say to them?
Well, everything starts with communication. So the person that you're having difficulty with, have you ever sat down and had a conversation about what the expectations are? Also, depending your role, what your role is in the organization, then maybe the question is, what is our objective? What do we need to do to get there? What tools and resources do I need to develop to achieve that goal? Or basically, how can I improve the system? If it's a systems things, you can say to your supervisor, for example, I know that this is our objective to achieve XYZ, but I notice that perhaps if we are more clear in terms of the paperwork that we need to be completed, or if we create a more centralized system that might make our paperwork or her flow a little easier.
I think,
Being clear.
yeah, so just being clear,
Maybe not
communication
looking at
basically is
it.
how you fix it, right? Like, because personal
Yeah, well,
accountability.
communication,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, personal accountability, but also thinking about what role do you play in terms of solving that problem? Being proactive or seeing the glass full versus empty.
Mm,
Like we have a choice. You can go to work for 40 hours or 37 and a half hours. You could be absolutely miserable during that time,
yeah,
or you can create whatever you can control. You can create your happy space in that
I see.
space.
I see.
Create a happy space for it. Like, what do you need to ultimately do? What's the purpose? Why are you there?
Yeah.
Is it a job that you love? Like, is it bringing you joy in your life
Mm.
because it is taking up 40 hours a week or more of your time?
I definitely agree. I'm looking at that, and I agree with that personal responsibility, and you know, thinking about it. Some people talk about like meditating, asking yourself, what am I doing that's causing this situation? How can I help become better given the circumstances that have been presented to me? I think that's
Right.
an approach that we could take. Yeah. So, all right. Number two. The number two important thing is that it's much harder to change the system than to change yourself. In fact, I would say it's almost impossible to individually change the system. And it's much compared to changing yourself. What do you say about that, Liz? What do you think?
I totally agree with that. One of the books that we were talking about earlier was Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
and we talk about wealth building
Mm-hmm.
and the tax system. Let's just, for giggles, let's talk about the tax system.
Yeah.
There's a phrase that says the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer.
Mm.
Well, what does that mean? If we do not learn or start to educate ourselves define the tax laws that will benefit us as consumers, then what do? We pay more of hard earnings
Yeah.
towards tax because we're not writing off expenses. We are not setting ourselves as individuals up as corporations so that we can have the maximum tax deductions. The average American, unless they're in entrepreneurship spirit or trying to do that, don't have multiple streams of income. A lot of us, including myself, work more than one job. But it wasn't until recently that I realized that within my one or two or three jobs, well, maybe I need to start looking at entrepreneurship so that I can have some tax write-offs.
Yes,
So
and
let's look at the tax system, for example.
yes, I totally agree. I totally 100% agree with that. I've noticed that when filing taxes for people, that the working class, the people who work hard, I've seen people work 80 hours a week, and the taxes they pay is absolutely ridiculous. And the reason, and they complain and say, oh, the system is so bad, but it's so hard to change the system,
Right.
because, let's face it, when you change the system, it can have consequences, other unintended consequences. So most of the time, most people don't want to change the system. The other thing I'm going to talk about, people always talk about, oh, revolution, we can, and I'm like, if you look at history for the last 1,000 years, revolutions seldom work. It might be like one in 100 years, maybe even more years, like 150, 200 years. It's very rare that revolutions work out. And even when the revolution work out, in the long run, it's not that successful. I mean, I can start with the French Revolution took like 40 years to be successful. I mean, they started out, it succeeded, and then it fell apart really quickly. And you can look at the Russian Revolution. We know how that turned out. I mean, we can keep going. And so the thing is, it's better to look at the system and say, what are the loopholes in this system? How can it benefit me and my family, or me and the people that I know, so that we can fully benefit from the system, rather than, oh, I can't stand this system, we need to do something about it, I don't know, and keep complaining, because the complaining is not going to fix the system.
Right. Oh, I totally agree with that. One of the challenges more recently I've been looking at is when you talk about wealth building, is that we spend a lifetime trying, or a lot of people, not we, but there are a lot of people who spend a lifetime trying to save for retirement, and they have no investment vehicles. They they're not even looking at being competitive in terms of their savings accounts. The average person may not even realize that instead of getting 0.2% at a savings and loan bank, a local bank, they could go online, they could look at different, like Fidelity or different types of banking institutions, and compete for a higher yield.
Yes.
Some of the CD rates are high locally, in Albany, New York, are going for like 3.95 annual percentages, 3.9, 4.99. So, even if you're saving and you're just being very conservative, fight for a higher interest rate because you're gonna earn more over time. Look at your CD. So if you're not a risk taker, start looking at your standard savings account. And above all, pay yourself first. You work hard, you know.
I agree.
You should be the first bill that you pay. What is it, 10% of your income? What's the recommended amount?
I think it's 10%. 10%. Some people say 20%. 10%, I think, is good enough. If you pay yourself first and put it in the savings, it's surprising after a few months, and you look at it. I can talk about myself. Me and three other friends, we've been talking about savings, and we are holding each other accountable. And so the way it works is, we have a savings target percentage-wise, and we tell each other, you're going to save this percentage. And if you don't succeed, you got to tell your friends we didn't succeed. And you have to explain why. So that's personal responsibility, right? You got to explain why you didn't succeed. And so I've saved a ton of money doing that. I mean, it's not rich money, but it's like I was looking at I was like, wow, I have this amount of savings in my account. I was very surprised because before I barely had any savings in my account.
Right.
I didn't even have an emergency fund. I was like, if an emergency happens, I'm gonna have to call you up, Liz. I say, oh, maybe I can call up Liz and see if she can give me a loan because that's how bad it was. And now I can look at, oh, I have an emergency account. I can go to that account and use that money to help me if I have an emergency. Because you have to have an emergency fund in case anything goes wrong, and yeah, and that accountability has helped us. So we have realized, rather than fighting the system, work within the system, look at ways to improve ourselves. So that's how I've seen it. And I think that one, you talk about retirement, people working in the long run, so that when you retire, you have enough resources. And when you're working as a retiree, you're just working for the sake of working.
Right.
And instead of working because you have to earn a living. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So what else would you say? What other things do you have to say about that, about the system, about changing
well, with anything, I think it lies from within you. So if you're complaining about a system, something is unfair, think about little ways that you can control to make a difference in how it impacts your life. For example, one of the issues that I hear on the news a lot, the issue of affordable housing. For example, affordable housing for most Americans, especially living in the inner city, the complaint is that the rents are out of control. You have a 2-bedroom, you're paying, I don't know, $1,800, let's say, for example. Well, short-term sacrifices make long-term results. Think about it. So if you're in a family unit and you go, for 2 years, if we all live together in a 4-bedroom house, we rent a 4-bedroom apartment or something like that, we split the rent 4 different ways. 2 years from now, how much more will you have saved up? Will that put you in a position to take advantage of first-time ownership? They have a lot of programs. The government has first-time ownership programs where they will give you a percentage, where they will match your savings account to help you get into your first home. You have Habitat for Humanity, another vehicle to get into a brand new home in certain neighborhoods, depending on where you live. If you are on Section 8, Section 8 has a program where you can transfer your Section 8 certificate and actually buy a home.
I did not know that.
In the United States.
Section 8 part.
Yeah, Section 8 has a program within it for home ownership.
Yeah.
So there are ways, if you do research, there are ways to move you to the next level. But again, short-term sacrifices for long-term success.
Yeah.
Even with one of the issues right now is back in the day, and I know when I was growing up, we as teenagers or like preteens, we were in charge of taking care of everybody's kids in the neighborhood. Now, most parents have to rely on daycare centers, which can be very expensive, $250 or more a week per child. So that's a huge drain on someone's income. And yes, there are government subsidies. I encourage individuals to check with their local DSS and the child care unit in particular. They have lots of money and they have expanded the income guidelines. So even working families are allowed to get subsidized child care. But in the meantime, what about working together like old time?
Yeah.
In the old days, back in the day, people used to say, I work 3 to 11. Okay, I'm available in the morning. I will take your kids to the school. Can you pick mine up? So that means forming a community, going back to it takes a village
trying to find a better
to
system.
raise your children, So again, if you really think about it, there are ways that we could work within our community, the churches, and just reach out, like form a community within single parent, reach out to other single parents. I got through my master's degree hanging out with single parents. We used to all study together, kids in tow. Whoever didn't have to go to class kept the kids, and we all hung out in the library, or we fed our kids picnics, or put them in the park or whatever while we studied.
That's amazing.
But doing that, I got my master's. But I think the most rewarding experience from making that sacrifice was while I was pursuing my master's, when my 5-year-old child told her kindergarten teacher that I go to college every night. And the teacher was like, "That's no way." She said, "I go to college with my mom all
Mm,
the time." And so one of the teachers said to her she could not be, I don't know what it was, that she couldn't be something. And she said, "Professor Bowman told me I can be anything in this world." And the teacher was floored. She actually
mm,
called me to ask me. And when I told her, "Yeah, she's telling you the truth."
mm,
And that has something that has struck with me, and I'll be forever grateful. Dr. Joseph Bowman at SUNY Albany,
mm,
he really impacted my child's life. I mean, at
mm.
5 years old,
That's
because
amazing.
he allowed me to bring her in the classroom, and she learned at an early age the value of education.
Mm.
But I mean, I know I got a little bit off topic, but again,
No, I
in the
love it that you give
system,
an example of your
yeah.
child. I really love it.
But that's a way of, I didn't have a babysitter. I was a single parent.
Mm,
I didn't have anybody. So I had to teach my child
mm,
that when we're in a college classroom, you had to be quiet. But we used to bring a coloring book and she used to do things. She was like, "I'm a big girl. I'm going to school with my mom and her friends." So she embraced it that way. But
that's
some of it
amazing.
rubbed off on her, because
That's
she's a
amazing.
brilliant young lady now. So, but again, another way of looking at the system and
Mm.
not being a victim of the system.
Yeah, I appreciate Liz sharing your personal experience and yeah. The third thing that I would say is what's your intentions? I think Liz had talked about this when we were talking on the side. Why are you there? So what do you think about that? What are your intentions? Why are you there? We're kind of building on the first one, but what do you think about that, Liz?
Well, I think, what's your purpose? Why are you there?
Mm,
Why are you even spending time in
mm,
either the situation? Like, what are you getting out of it? If
mm,
it's an employment opportunity, is it really a career? Is it your passion? Do
mm.
you get up in the morning energized and can't wait to get there because you know that's your thing?
Yeah.
Or is it, "I hate this freaking job. I
Mm,
don't want to be bothered. I'm getting stressed out before I even wake up." Then
mm,
maybe it's time to change. Or if you're so super excited about being there,
mm,
then like, and you're joyful, it's only going to be contagious. Each life that you touch, you're going to have like that ripple effect. But again, if you're miserable, let's
mm.
talk about change. Where do you want to go? How do
So
you get there?
what would you say to somebody who says, I love this company, I love it, it's okay, but I'm not getting any promotions here. Like I'm not moving up, for example. What would you say to that person?
First of all, do your homework.
Mm,
And while you're doing your homework about career opportunities within that organization,
mm,
what's your next level? What is your next level? For
mm.
example, if you are the assistant manager,
Yeah,
so you should be working at a managerial level
yeah,
already.
yeah,
So what skill set do you need to develop to get to the next level?
yeah.
Also, what mentors do you need to meet? Are you
Mm,
networking? Are you gaining a level of expertise in
yeah,
whatever career track you're in?
yeah.
How are you distinguishing yourself from the pack?
Mm,
And it doesn't necessarily mean work harder, maybe it's work smarter.
that's true.
Like, take time to
Yeah,
sharpen your saw. I think Stephen Covey says it best:
yeah.
sharpen your saw, continuously grow, commit to yourself.
Mm,
If you can start committing to yourself and start doing the things that you need to do, like mind your own business, so to speak,
yeah,
stay in your lane,
yeah,
start focusing on things you can control, and look at what's the bottom line. What is it you desire
yeah,
to accomplish? And if it means going back to school, and the great thing about this day and age is that you have Google.
yeah,
Anything that you want to become an expert on is
yeah.
literally at your fingertips.
Mm,
One of the free platforms that I've been utilizing lately is Allison, Alison.
yes.
Is a free learning platform. Wonderful. You type in anything in the search engine, you want to know about a topic, it will give you foundational knowledge.
I had
You
no
can
idea about
learn,
Allison. Wow, I'm
yeah,
gonna have to use
you
that.
can learn subject matter. Like for myself,
I'm
I
typing
hate to
this right
admit that I'm not an expert on social media,
now.
so
Yeah.
I am learning a lot about social media. I
Mm.
am earning actually my digital certificate, like a digital badge, and
Yeah.
it's great because it's available 24/7, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Anytime that I have 5 minutes, I can learn something new. So surround yourself with like-minded people,
Mm.
find mentors in your field of expertise.
Mm.
Look at yourself as you become the baby shark in the big ocean.
Yeah.
Look for opportunities. The big boys, people who are very successful, one thing that I've learned, they love
Yeah.
to share their knowledge. You're not a threat to them because
Yeah.
they've already achieved what you're trying to achieve.
I
And
agree.
then the other thing is share. If you
Yeah.
know that a colleague of yours is interested in a particular topic, let's say golf, for example. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm trying to become a better golf player. I am not the best. I
Yeah.
probably will never be the best,
I can't
but
even play golf.
I try and I learn and I laugh at myself because I know that I'm not going to be Tiger Woods. However, I can have a lot of fun on the golf course.
Yeah.
And that's really about being present, enjoying my surroundings, and enjoying the people who play with me.
Mm.
Um, but but looking at that level, but it's nice to surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who are traveling the road that you would like to travel. You
Mm.
will find that you will get a different perspective
Mm.
about your career or even your life
Mm.
because you'll discover, like, maybe like for myself, the older I get, I'm discovering that it's the little things that count the most to me. you know it doesn't have a dollar sign attached. It's those rare friendships,
Mm.
because I do believe that when we get to the end of our time,
Yeah.
nobody's going to be worried about how many dollars you're going to take with you as you transition. What
Yes.
you're really going to worry about is the quality, the difference you have made while you had your opportunity to leave a footprint on this earth,
Yes.
but also the quality of your friendships. Because when you get down and out, you will find out who your true friends are,
Yeah.
and those will be the people that will support and love you through the hard times. And that's my 2 cent worth.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one of the things I was going to talk, like, which I remember, there was a saying called, if you fail to prepare, be prepared to fail. And the idea is that you always have to be ready. And one of the things I've done, which I've done wrong in my life, I'm going to speak about my own personal life, is I've gone into, so I work right now, and I've been asking myself, why have I not moved up? And then I realized I didn't do anything much to help myself move up, right? For the last 3-4 years. I didn't do anything much. I had opportunities, especially, even during COVID. I was at home. I had there were a lot of materials that were available to learn and train. I did nothing. I was just there sitting down and, and I am to blame, like I can't blame anybody else for not being able to move up or not being able to get promoted. And so, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, if I had just been prepared, if I'd planned out my promotion and say, you know what, in the next 2 years, I want to move up. So what classes do I need to take? What do I need to do? What studies do I need to do? I might have already moved up, but instead I was sitting there just doing nothing and expecting things will be working out. And then, I had an interview one time for promotion, and it was an interview online. And you know what I did? I didn't test my computer. So when I came home, it was 2 minutes before the interview, and I ended up being late 5 minutes. And of course, they were like, we don't even want this dude. This is already late. So that was my fault. And I
Uh-huh.
can't blame anybody else but myself. And I think sometimes we don't, it's a tendency, oh, I was only 5 minutes late. So, I don't know why they took that against me. They should have just looked at my credentials. Well, you got to put in the effort. Like you talk about the Allison platform, where I could learn a lot. I didn't even know about that platform. I had no idea that I could learn a lot from from that platform, and I just wrote it down. And so that's what I'm learning over time, is that I have to take personal responsibility, and I have to ask, what's my purpose? What do I want to achieve? And then work on the things I want to achieve. If I want to get promoted within my company organization, then there are things I need to do. Because if you do those things and you still don't get promoted, then you know that maybe you may need to move with the skills that you've returned somewhere else at a higher position, perhaps.
Right.
So, that's the advantage of being able to move from one company or one organization to another. Yeah, but anyway, what do you have to say? What more do you have to say? What's your advice to the audience? What would you say that
Well, my advice is, we can't change the past. We can only go forward. And I think that there's an old saying that an older relative of mine used to say, nothing happens before it's time. It's like fine wine. So sometimes in life, you have to just go through some things. And the difference is, have you learned the lesson? So now that you become aware that, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to be more intentional about setting goals. So now you're going to set goals. You're going to be specific. You're going to have your short-term goal versus long-term goals, and you're going to start taking baby steps to make it happen. And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because as long as you have life, you have possibilities. That's the wonderful thing about life.
Absolutely. So now we are at a point of a conclusion, and we'll look into what we could learn. What do you think people can learn from those three major points that we made, Liz? What do you think?
I think my first point would be intentional, be transparent, be very authentic in terms of what you want to achieve. Be clear, spend time with yourself. Like, what is important to you? Whatever the challenge is, or if you keep repeating certain behaviors, what they say insanity is repeating the same behavior and expecting a different result. Look at systems instead of looking at systems saying, oh, and complaining about it, like childcare, affordable housing, or whatever the challenge is. Look at it. What can I do differently that will make an impact as to how the system will affect me or my family?
Yeah.
And the examples that we gave was like housing, maybe sharing space with another family member or several family members. So in 2 years, you could take advantage of opportunities like affordable housing, home ownership programs for first-time homeowners, or you could look at, am I on Section 8? Well, Section 8 has a whole component for home ownership, self-sufficiency, moving families out of poverty. If you're on Section 8 or any kind of affordable housing, subsidized housing programs, talk to the federal HUD counselors and find out what remedies are available to you. There are tons of money, when I tell you, tons of money that will match your savings. They also, more recently, we didn't talk about it, but just to kind of summarize it really quick, there's been a lot of talk about the cliff effect when people earn above a certain dollar amount when they're on these subsidized programs. Well, now there's current legislation that is either pending or has passed where they will give you a year where you will maintain your benefits while you transition to the next level financially. So
That's
again,
great.
that's having a conversation with your counselor in a HUD capacity if you're in one of those systems, or with the DSS worker, which is Department of Social Services, but having those real conversations, candid conversations. I want to be in a self-sufficiency program. And in terms of one of the other points that we talked about was being prepared. I think you brought a valid point. You have to be prepared so when opportunity presents itself, you can move forward.
Yeah, using your networks. Absolutely. Using your networks that you have. And, yes, I think that's what I can learn from those three major points. And really, really, I mean, the programs you have, we're going to talk in detail in the future. Stay with us on this channel because we're going to be going into details about each program, each way. For example, I will talk to you about taxes in the future. Liz will talk to you a lot about some of the programs that they have. I had no idea about Section 8 and assistance for housing. I learned that from Liz. So sometimes, for if you wanted to buy a house, that is, I'm not talking about rent, which we all know about, but buying a house. So, having knowledge, knowledge is power,
Right.
So if you have knowledge, it can help you. So just learn from those three major points. Ask yourself, what can I do based on the present circumstances? What's there available to improve myself? Rather than how do I go out and force people to change people into me? That's very unlikely to happen. You're not going to change people into you, but you can change yourself and adapt. I would call it adaptation. You're adapting to the environment around you, and when it gets hot, you don't go out and scream at the sunlight and say, "Hey, it's so hot out there, you sunlight, you stupid sun." You buy an air conditioner and you put it in your house and you cool down your house. You know what? It's hot. You don't scream at the weather. So the same thing applies to people. You don't go out and try to change trying to change an environment. Change yourself so you can adapt to the environment.